The one thing that I think Jon and Dave get a lot of credit for right now is the fact that they really are dedicating their lives to turning Star Wars around, to let it thrive and survive by including a lot of fan-favorite aspects of Star Wars Legends, and even throwing in a lot of rejected Legends ideas that were never approved back in the 1990s that's going to be used as original material that never saw the light of day. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new, and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the kind and great support. Now that brings us to, of course, what's been going on between Jon and Dave and what they have planned for the future of not just The Mandalorian, but the entirety of the Mandoverse. And even Jon and Dave are beginning to call it the Mandoverse. They're taking it upon what the fans call it. Now, when you look at everything related to this, we know one thing is that George Lucas is heavily involved with Jon and Dave working on Mando 3 and 4 back-to-back, with the Ahsoka series, with Ahsoka Season 2 getting pitched right now to Disney, and a lot of things happening, of course, for Star Wars Mandalore, as we talked about this. This is basically going to be the extension of The Mandalorian, or the evolution, I should say, of The Mandalorian series. So what's even all the more exciting is exactly what has been storyboarded for Mando Season 4 and what's being implemented into the script as we speak right now, and how a lot of it is going to have to do with something huge from the Thrawn trilogy from the 1990s. So let's tap into this. Now, one thing that a lot of fans have been very skeptical about is whether or not Jon and Dave are going to be able to accurately represent Star Wars Legends going into the Disney canon. However, with Disney currently expanding the roadmap for Star Wars fans, both Jon and Dave are getting ready to make some big announcements for the community. Now, it's noted that for The Mandalorian 4, both Jon and Dave are crafting a very big story to be told that will involve Grand Admiral Thrawn and a new Dark Jedi that will be one of the new villains for the Mandoverse era to face Luke Skywalker. Now, this is said to be Thrawn's new pawn in the upcoming new Star Wars that will take place in, of course, the overall Mandoverse. It's described that both Jon and Dave want an A-list actor to portray this new Dark Jedi that will be considered the canon version of Joruus C'baoth. As of now, they are looking at both Jeff Bridges and actor Kevin Costner to portray the role. Now, in the beginning, surprisingly, Christopher Lloyd was given the role, but instead was offered something else entirely new. Favreau and Filoni are said to be setting up something huge with Mount Tantiss and a big connection and story to Luke's severed hand that will be placed in The Mandalorian Season 4. So, I want to just pause here quick. Now, for those of you that don't know about this, in the Thrawn trilogy, we learn a lot more about Joruus C'baoth, and how basically he is a clone of a dead Jedi that goes mad. He basically is a Dark Jedi that gets recruited by Grand Admiral Thrawn, and then Thrawn uses him essentially basically as a pawn to control, the New Republic fleet and their ships to kind of go up against each other. There's a lot of scenarios in there. But the thing that really comes out of this the most is how Joruus actually creates a clone of Luke in the Thrawn trilogy. And in that scenario, Luke's severed hand is a big part of the story. So basically, Jon and Dave are going to build things up to the clone of Luke Skywalker, or at least a tease about it, and how Luke's severed hand is going to be a big deal in Mandalorian Season 4, in Mount Tantiss with Joruus C'baoth behind the scenes. Now, Joruus C'baoth, by the way, guys, if you don't know what he looks like, he's a very wizard-looking Jedi. And when I mean a wizard-looking Jedi, I'm talking about full-blown wizard style. He's got this long, waist-length, gray silver hair with a long beard. Very much like Gandalf in Lord of the Rings. Almost near exact to that. Very similar. And basically they're looking at Kevin Costner to portray the role, and or Jeff Bridges. They're the two top actors at the list to play Jorah Sabaoth. Basically, John and Dave want a major A-lister to join the Mandoverse, to drag in fans of those actors that will actually boost up the ratings and the viewership of The Mandalorian. That's what they want to do. Now, sure, I get it, A-listers are not always the solution to everything, but it's gonna help. It's gonna absolutely help The Mandalorian seem more mainstream and more out there, and by getting somebody like Kevin Costner of Yellowstone, or Jeff Bridges of The Old Man series, I think it's a great move, and I think it really is gonna help them out. So, I think that they're both great casting decisions as Jorah Sabaoth, fitting by the description of what you can see in the Thrawn trilogy book covers. However, John and Dave are said to be setting up a big reveal of an attempted clone of Luke that will be used just like in the Thrawn trilogy. Now, John and Dave are said to be retconning the whereabouts of Luke Skywalker's original saber that once belonged to Anakin, and how it will be tied to Jorah Sabaoth holding it in his possession. Jorah is a clone of a dead Jedi who went dark and is planned to be accurate in the canon version. So once again, John and Dave are retconning the whereabouts of Luke's original saber, technically Anakin's. In Legends, basically, the clone version of Luke wields Anakin's saber against Luke Skywalker, who wields the green one. And in there, it really does kind of create a mirror image of Luke. Basically, in Legends, the clone version of Luke was called Luke, with, I believe, an extra U or K. And they really went all out with that. Timothy Zahn really knows what the fans want, and this makes a lot of sense, by the way. What even all the more makes this more concrete is that John and Dave actually met up with Timothy Zahn about 2 months ago for a big story element for The Mandalorian Season 4, and I have no doubt in my mind that it has a lot to do with this big implementation of Jorah Sabaoth, and basically the story of Luke's severed hand, Mount Tantiss, Thrawn, and a whole lot more. Now, we are going to have a Dark Jedi in the Ahsoka series, but it's not going to be Jorah Sabaoth. So it's very likely that Jorah Sabaoth could be the replacement of this other Dark Jedi from what we see in Ahsoka, who, by the way, goes by the name of Babylon. And the other scenario is that it could very well also be that maybe Sabaoth will be an additional Dark Jedi that's another pawn of Grand Admiral Thrawn. Who knows? So, moving on to the next big thing here is that you can see that this is really setting things up for the Thrawn trilogy. And if you guys want to stay in the loop, I do suggest, if you have a lot of free time on your hands, read up on Heir to the Empire and the rest of the books in the Thrawn trilogy. It's an amazing read, and I really do think that if you read it, it's not a waste of time, because John and Dave, they're taking all the elements from those books and throwing it in shows like Ahsoka and Mando. So overall, I'm really intrigued to see what each and every one of you guys out there have to say about this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.